I've noticed, like, when I would leave my family, like, I would just feel, like, spiritually drained.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Please do me a favor, like and subscribe.
What would you say is the best part about doing YouTube?
I know instantly what the answer is, and I don't know if it's what you're looking for, but it has made me a better mom. Honestly, because if you have the camera on your face, and then at the end of the day, you look at the footage, you realize, oh my heck, I totally overreacted. Why did I overreact like that? I'm gonna have to cut all this out, and it's really painful to watch myself. Like, how many times did your mom tell you, you should see yourself? If you could just look at yourself right now.
Back in 2015 is when Sheri Frankie started her YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, that had 2.3 million subscribers. This channel was essentially a family vlogging channel where she documented her life with her husband, Kevin Frankie, and her 6 children. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Sheri Frankie's oldest daughter, Shari Franke. Shari is 20 years old and a junior at BYU. Now, Shari ultimately distanced herself from her family. And in 2022, she made this post to her Instagram stories. There are many rumors circulating online about my family. While it is true I am not in contact with my immediate family and don't support the extreme beliefs of connections, please remember that this is my real family. Despite good intentions, speculating, rumors, and gossip doesn't help us. I'd like to ask for privacy for me and my family as we work through this very difficult situation. I hope one day that we can be whole again. Please respect my privacy as I work through my own healing as well. Now, 2022 was the same year that Ruby joined Jodi in Connections. Fast forward to May 2023, and Shari goes on to a podcast called Into the Light, where she discusses what it was like growing up on social media and her separation from her family and what she thought about Connections.
Was it growing up being on camera all the time? Because it's a lot, right?
Yeah, so I started being on camera. I should remember the exact age. I was like 12, maybe 13-ish.
Yeah.
I thought it was strange at first, honestly. I was like, this is weird. Like, we take a camera with us everywhere. And
oh, was that like legit?
yeah, like we took a camera when we'd go on vacations. We'd film going to the store. We'd just like always kind of film everything. But over the years, like I got used to it more. It's like, yeah, this is like our job. Like, this is how we pay for vacations. This is how we get to do fun stuff. Like, you don't love it every day, but you do it because it's work.
Just imagine having to wake up every day and have a camera shoved in your face because it's, quote, work. This is one of the main issues people have with family vloggers, is they may start out with good intentions, but once their channel builds and builds, they start getting brand deals, like this Instagram post.
But even still to this day, I get embarrassed to go out and like film in public, even though I've been doing it for like 8 years.
Yeah.
I go out by myself. I'm like hiding the camera.
Did that ever get hard? Like being in the limelight all the time?
Yeah, it got hard, especially
growing up.
Yeah, growing up. I mean, junior high phase, just I don't think was great for anybody.
Imagine growing up through your awkward years of high school and having all of that posted online for millions and millions of strangers, plus potential future employers to see. I mean, you can just look at some of these titles on their YouTube channel and see that they literally recorded everything.
And then I feel like as I got older, people got like meaner in the comments. They would say things like, oh, she's just a Molly Mormon, like she's just gonna grow up, become a baby making machine. Like,
wow.
Oh my gosh.
Just because she's a member of the church. And so there was a lot of attack on
At
religion.
13.
Yeah. So that like there was a lot of attack on religion. People made fun of me because like I took school seriously, and they were like, she needs a life, and which like I agree, I did need a life besides school. But
yeah, but it was not helpful. You had like bully, like people have like the typical bully and like the person making fun of you at
like
school.
strangers
who are
internet.
grown adults.
Yeah.
How did that affect you as a young kid?
I found myself, like, I would tell myself, it doesn't matter what they say. Like, I know how I feel about myself. And I think I believed that for a while.
Yeah.
But I always would find myself just, like, checking comments on Instagram, on YouTube, just to see what people had said about me. Because I just wanted to, like, be aware of what people were saying, I guess. And that probably got to, like, an unhealthy point where I was just checking all the time.
And I'm sure Ruby's children also got bullied and made fun of at school, because now everyone who goes to school with them can see their entire lives on the internet. So not only do they have to deal with bullies in real life, they now have to deal with bully strangers on the internet. Now, Ruby ultimately did pull them out of school and started homeschooling them, but I'm sure for that time, they still had to face that. Now we're going to get into her talking about her experience with Connections.
When did all that start, and how has it affected you?
Yeah, so when I was in 10th grade, so I was like 15, my family joined a group, like a mental health, kind of like a self-help group, basically, because we wanted to, grow closer as a family. We wanted each of us individually to become more like self-sufficient and
growth-oriented.
Growth oriented. And so we started in this group, and like it was great at first. Like we were learning like a new, like learning lingo for stuff, and we were able to communicate in ways that we understood each other. And then, when we interact with other people and we'd use the same language, like they were very confused. They were like, I don't understand what you're saying. And so in a sense, I feel like that brought us closer as a family, because we knew what the other person, how they thought. We knew like how we could communicate with each other. And then as like the years progressed, this group became more extreme, and they began to equate like their curriculum and their teachings kind of with the gospel in a sense. Mm-hmm.
So at first it wasn't with the gospel.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I never remembered that. Maybe they said it and I just forgot it. Yeah. But
when do you feel like, what was the thing that made you become more aware that they were equating it?
I think when they started like talking about God while they were also talking about their same curriculum and stuff.
Self-help, growth. Yeah. Got it.
And so I was like, oh, well, the gospel and this go together. Like if I live this curriculum well, then I'll be a better church member. And vice versa.
And this is where some of that manipulation comes in. I'm assuming that most of these people are Mormon, since they got recommendations through the church to go to Jodi. And now we're going to use their religion against them to make them believe that if they're not following these principles, they're damned, basically.
How did you feel about it? Like,
yeah, so I remember going into it, and one of the people had said to me, like, I don't think you have a lot of, like, empathy for other people and a lot of compassion for other people.
Like, towards you individually?
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm going to work on it. And so I would say my prayers at night and be like, Heavenly Father, like, why don't I have empathy? Like, please help me to, like, have it. And, I mean, obviously, everyone could have more empathy, I think. But I don't think I was, like, deprived of empathy. Yeah. I look back at like a lot of the things that I prayed for at that age, and I like feel bad for myself that I was like so concerned with like, help me be clean, help me be empathetic, like I don't know what to do. And then I feel like I would work on it, and then I would go and talk with these people, and they'd say, you're still not getting it. And I would just like lose my mind over like, what else am I supposed to do? Like,
what was the benchmark for them? Like, what was the
that's hard.
Yeah, I don't know. So like every week we would keep track of like how many times you used black and white thinking, how many times you like denigrated yourself, and so it was like a very, like I was always focused on the negative things that I was doing, and had to report on those. And so I started to notice those things in like other people as well. So like I would look at somebody and say, your eyes look dark, like you're hiding something, and I still find myself to this day, sometimes I make snap judgments about people, and I'm like, crap, no, I don't want to do that. So it's like, it's taken a lot of work, and still is, to like undo that kind of like snap judgment mentality about me and other people.
And some of this also came from Ruby and how they were raised. Ruby was not very empathetic towards her children and was at times very judgmental. So if that's how you are to your own children, that's how they are going to behave.
So how long were you, I guess, actively involved in this before you decided to?
Yeah, so I was in 10th grade when I joined, and then...
I guess, sorry to interrupt, if you feel comfortable saying, what is the joining process?
Like do you have to sign up?
So the joining process for it, like you can pay for like workbooks online. They have like weekly conferences you can join. You can do like one-on-one sessions with the main life coach. It does involve like paying to get in. So, but they also do like social media stuff, and some people just look at that and they're like, yeah, this is great.
Sounds like a basic life coaching company.
Yeah.
Now, remember, we've also learned from some of Jodi's victims who are speaking out that Jodi would get referrals through the LDS church. And if those people could not afford this therapy, then they would get the funding from the church.
Right. I had friends that would point out to me when I'd come home from my family. They're like, you're different. Like, you are going back to how you were in high school. Not that I was a terrible person in high school, but they're like, we can just see something like different about you. So just kind of the more time I spent with myself and with God, I was like, okay, like this is how I want to feel all the time. Yeah. You know, and a few months ago, started going to like therapy, and that definitely helped to have like an outside person not tell me how to think, but be like, this was wrong, or like, you're totally okay to feel like this. And so that was like more of validating just how I thought, because a lot of times I'd want to, you know, love myself, and I'd want to, but then I'd always be like, no, like I'm lying to myself. I need to be hard on myself. And so to have someone else tell me like, no, like it's okay to like love yourself. And I was like, oh, those thoughts had been there the whole time. I just never like took them seriously. So like I said, I joined it when I was in 10th grade. I got like more strongly involved throughout high school. So I graduated like very much on board with all of it. And then I came to college, and I mean, high school was like a bubble within a bubble within a bubble. And then I broke out of one of those bubbles when I came to BYU. Still in some bubbles, but less. So I started to, like, interacting with roommates and people that I hadn't met. I was very judgmental. I was like, wow, she's wearing that. Like, she's going to hell. Wow, she's wearing that. God's so mad at her. So, like, I was still very, like, judgmental about people like that. And I would take religion classes, and they would talk about, you know, God is so gracious and kind. And I'd say, well, they've got it wrong. And so I was just very, like, critical about the world. And then I think, like, some things within my family were happening that I started to question, like, I don't know if this is okay. Like, I don't know if God would actually support this. Like, is this really the gospel? And so for a long time, for like 7 months of my freshman year in college, I was just debating. I was like, I don't know what to believe. Like, I believe the gospel is true, but I don't know exactly what that gospel is.
Yeah. And for anyone who may be listening to this, I just want to make it clear that Christianity and Mormonism are two separate things. I mean, some people who claim to be Christians aren't even technically Christians, and following Jesus and Christianity can also look very different, but that's getting into a whole other subject. So when you hear someone say the gospel, it's not always the same gospel.
Like, I didn't know where to draw the line between
life coaching and
gospel. Like life coaching and the gospel. And then I still remember one day, like, I was praying. I was like, I need like a very clear indicator, like, if I'm going down the wrong road, or if I should change something in my life. And so I woke up one morning, and I had the story of Jesus at the well with the woman. And a saying stuck out to me that he said. He basically said, like, you should worship God in spirit and in truth. And I was like, wow. And, like, I didn't think much of it at first, but it stayed with me for days. And I looked at that, like, we should worship in spirit and in truth. And I had just been doing one of those things and not the other. And so at that point, I was very convinced, like, this is too extreme. I need to do something, change something. But I wasn't sure how, because, you know, I want to honor my family. We're supposed to honor our parents. And I felt that to disagree with them was sinful, and that God would be mad at me too if I did that.
Again, this circles back to what Mormonism teaches. God is not going to shut you out because you're taking a stand against something your parents are doing that is wrong.
How do you think you've kind of, I guess, mentally worked through that?
I gave no indication that I disagreed with what was going on, because I wanted to still be, like, included in things. And so again, for those like whole 7 months I was doubting, whenever I'd go home, you know, it was like, oh, we use this language, we talk about things like this. And then I noticed, like, when I would leave my family, like, I would just feel like spiritually drained. Like, I just wouldn't feel great.
Yeah.
I would like overhear conversations and just like find myself internally like, this isn't right. Like, this isn't okay. And so it got to the point where I was like, I can't keep pretending like everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Now, that was just some of her interview. If you would like to listen to the whole thing, it is on Into the Light podcast, and this is the title. So the interview on the podcast was from 2023, and prior to this, Sheri had actually contacted law enforcement to do child welfare checks on her siblings. In fact, between 2019 and 2023, the Springville police visited the Frankies' home 15 times. And during at least 5 of those visits, DCFS was accompanying them. According to Rolling Stone magazine, a neighbor was quoted saying that in early 2022, it started getting weird. People were concerned because Ruby completely stopped her YouTube stuff, and then it just kind of turned dark. She taped up paper over all of her windows. She would disappear for weeks at a time, and there's all these little kids just left alone in the house. In April of 2022, police were called to the Frankies' neighborhood when a DCFS worker reported 2 young kids running around in the road unsupervised. In July of 2022, Kevin was kicked out of the home, according to Jennifer, Ruby's sister-in-law, who is married to Kevin's brother. Sheri came to her and said that she wasn't allowed to speak to her father. Sheri said Kevin wouldn't talk to her, he wouldn't respond to phone calls or emails, and that Kevin thinks he's a horrible person. 2 months after Kevin moves out in September of 2022, Sheri asked police to visit her mother's home, saying neighbors had informed her that her younger siblings were home alone. Sheri told police her sisters and brother had been alone in the house for about 5 days while their mom was in St. George, Utah with a friend. Sheri Frankie asked authorities to check on the kids and make sure they had food and were safe. And that friend turned out to be Jodi. According to an article from KSL, officers responded, saw the children in the home, but they would not answer the door. When law enforcement arrived, neighbors gathered outside who were concerned. One of the neighbors told police they had video proof that Frankie had been gone for 5 days through surveillance cameras located on their properties. Police call records for the address show that officers followed up days later on September 22nd, then visited the home 3 more times on September 23rd, 26th, and October 3rd to assist DCFS. So in October of 2022 is when the caseworker said she had been to the Frankie residence several times to try and make contact with the kids, but neither Ruby Frankie nor the children would answer the door or pick up the phone. Which now brings us to August 2023 when Ruby Frankie and Jodi Hildebrandt were finally arrested. Sheri Frankie makes a post to her Instagram stories saying, "Finally. Today has been a big day. Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up. Kids are safe, but there's a long road ahead. Please keep them in your prayers. Also respect their privacy." Now, Sheri was at the most recent child welfare hearing with her attorney. During this hearing, there was conversation about whether or not they were going to seal the child custody case, and the judge asked for Sheri to file a motion so that she knew what her opinion was on this. And while we don't know how Sheri will respond, if this does happen, Sheri would not be allowed to attend any more of the child welfare hearings. Another mediation is scheduled for October 11th, and after that mediation, a pretrial will be held on October 17th to discuss what will happen next in the juvenile court case. Now, the sealing is for the child custody case, not for Ruby and Jodi's criminal case. That's all I have for you for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share.